Principles of Syndicalism by Tom Brown, originally published in War Commentary 1943 as a series of articles. Principles of Syndicalism 1. Not centralism, but federalism. The striking worker, once he ceases work, must face such problems as: how shall we pay the rent? How buy groceries? How renew the kiddies' shoes? Is it not then natural that he should look to his union for the payment of a little strike benefit? He has paid perhaps 2 shillings a week for 10, 15, or 20 years and drawn out not a penny. He has been told by his leaders that the union's funds add up to 5 or 6 million pounds. They told him that it is wise to pay his union dues to meet such a need as this. Unhappy man to expect anything back from the clutching hands of bureaucrats. First of all, he will find that the strike is termed unofficial. More than 99% of strikes are unofficial, in peace as in war. It may be in defense of some trade union agreement. It is probably in defense of wages. It will most certainly be just that case for which the worker has paid his trade union contributions. Nevertheless, down to the district or factory will come the trade union officials to condemn the strike. First will come a lesser bureaucrat. Lads, I sympathize with you. You are right, but I have my duty to do. You must go back to work. Next comes the big boss. He does not waste time on euphemisms or good manners. The strikers are a bunch of scoundrels led by agitators and anarchists. He hints darkly that if they don't go back to work, he will call the police, and in any case they won't get any strike pay, so they will be starved back. Does it not occur to the striker to ask, who is this person to say I must go back to work? Why should he have the power to withhold from me my own money? Yes, it does occur, but the worker has long been trained in the centralist principles of trade unionism and the state. Trade unions are organized on the same highly centralized principles as is the capitalist state. The trade unionist is in a dilemma. He knows that the strikers assembled at their place of work are the ones to decide when to strike, when to pay benefits, and what shall be official and what unofficial. But nevertheless, he wishes the workers' organizations to be so linked that they present one solid nationwide front against the common enemy. He does not wish to see the labor forces split into 1,000 small units, to be tackled one at a time by the boss, and too often he believes that centralism is the only way of achieving this. We affirm that there is another way, and deny that centralization achieves its claimed objective. Centralization takes control too far away from the place of struggle to be effective on the workers' side in that fight. Most disputes arise in the factory, bus garage, or mine. According to trade union procedure, the dispute must be reported to the district office of the union, and in some cases to an area office, then to head office, then back again, then the complicated machinery for avoiding disputes, devised by trade union leaders and the employer's lawyers, is set in its ball-passing motion until everyone forgets the original cause of all this passing up and down. The worker is not allowed any direct approach to or control of the problem. We are reminded of the memoirs of a certain court photographer who was making a picture of the old Emperor of Austria to turn his head a little to the left. Of course, he could not speak to an emperor, so he put his request to a captain of the court guard, who spoke to his colonel, who spoke to a count. The count passed the request to a duke, and he had a word with an archduke, who begged his imperial majesty to turn his head a little to the left. The old chap turned his head and said, "Is that sufficient?" and the message trickled back to the photographer via archduke, duke, count, colonel, and captain. The humble thanks travelled back by the same road. The steps of trade union communication are just so fixed. Centralization does not bring that class solidarity which the worker seeks. Decades of experience support us in this statement. The miners' defeat of 1921, the betrayal of the general strike of 1926, and the course of every strike since the last World War are evidence of this. Trade union machinists have blacklegged officially on striking iron moulders, engineers on boilermakers. Trade union transport workers have carried blacklegs to mine and factory. The National Union of Railwaymen have scabbed on the Society of Engine Men and Firemen. In every dispute, for one striker, there are a score of trade unionists to supply the strikebreakers with power, transport, light, heat, communications, and all the many means without which modern industry cannot exist. Even when the men concerned are members of one union, blacklegging still goes on. The London busman strike of 1937 was broken by the continuance at work of the trolley bus and tramwaymen, members of the same transport and general workers' union as the petrol busmen who obeyed Bevan's orders to remain at work. Had the transport workers obeyed their own class loyalty, had they controlled their own affairs, who can doubt that they would have struck in solidarity with their fellow workers? In contrast to this official trade union blacklegging, we have the class solidarity of the Swedish revolutionary unions spoken of by Jim Connolly in his pamphlet Socialism Made Easy. Connolly in turn is quoting the New York Sun. If the offending businessman happens to be a retail merchant, all workmen are warned off his premises. The drivers for the wholesale houses refuse to deliver goods at his store. The truckmen refuse to cart anything to or from his place, and so on. In fact, he is a doomed man unless he comes to terms with his union. It is worth mentioning that boycotting bulletins and also names and addresses of those who are bold enough to help the man are published in the leading type in all the socialist newspapers. If the boycotted person be a wholesale dealer, the proceedings are much the same, or rather they are reversed. The retailers are threatened with the loss of the workman's trade unless they cease dealing with such a firm. The truckmen refuse to haul for it. It has even happened that the scavengers have refused to remove the refuse from the premises. More often, however, the cans are accidentally dropped on the stairs. How are we to achieve rank-and-file control of the unions and yet gain the maximum coordination of the labour forces? Syndicalism solves the problem in a simple and straightforward way. The basis of the syndicate is the mass meeting of workers assembled at their place of work, factory, garage, ship, loco shed, or mine. The meeting elects its factory committee and delegates. The factory syndicate is federated to all other such committees in the locality, textile shop assistants, dockers, busmen, and so on. In the other direction, the factory, let us say engineering factory, is affiliated to the District Federation of Engineers. In turn, the District Federation is affiliated to the National Federation of Engineers. Such federations are formed in each of the 25 to 30 industries and services, Rail Federation, Transport Federation, and so on. Then each industrial federation is affiliated to the National Federation of Labour, the coordination of all the workers' forces. But how the members of such committees are elected is most important. They are, first of all, not representatives like members of Parliament, who air their own views. They are delegates who carry the message of the workers who elect them. They do not tell the workers what the official policy is. The workers tell them. Delegates are subject to instant recall by the persons who elected them. None may sit for longer than 2 successive years, and 4 years must elapse before his next nomination. Very few will receive wages as delegates, and then only the district rate of wages for the industry. We want none of the 1,000 a year fat trade union bosses. It will be seen that in the syndicate the members control the organisation, not the bureaucrats controlling the members. In a trade union, the higher up the pyramid a man is, the more power he wields. In a syndicate, the higher he is, the less power he has. The factory syndicate has full autonomy over its own affairs. The district deals only with the general conditions of the district and industry. The national with those things which are generally nationally, but not particular, to the primary syndicate. By such an organisation, the workers would be able to express in deeds their solidarity with striking fellow workers. The only hope of the greatest labour force being turned onto any dispute is that feeling of class solidarity. It is for us to allow it organisational expression. An injury to one is the concern of all.